everybody. This is Gregory with 5 Minute Catholic Apologetics, where 5 minutes of your time may get you to the divine. Today we're going to talk about how some Protestants have cognitive dissonance regarding how their denomination is the true church, when historically it's not vindicated at all. Now before we begin, let's start with a prayer. Namine Patris et Filii et Spiritus Sancti. Amen. Gloria Patri et Filii et Spiritus Sancto, sic ut erat in principio et nunc et semper et secula seculorum. Amen. All right, so I'm going to put a banner for an episode that correlates the founding of the Christian church with the Constitution and with the founding of the United States, because there are some correlations there. How, if you look at Sola Scriptura, how the Bible is essentially the handbook for Christian living, and you kind of use that correlate that to the Constitution. Well, clearly the Constitution, the Founding Fathers felt needed someone to interpret it, and therefore it created the executive branch, which expected to have successors and successors and successors. And it's no different in the Catholic world, where Jesus established a visible church. They expected to have successors, Peter's successors and so forth, to have a living magisterium to maintain, safeguard, and to guide the church. So today I'm going to give an example of like Red Dawn. If any of you guys remember the old 80s movie with Patrick Swayze, where Cuba and the Soviet Union invade the United States, and then there's breakaway republics and so forth. But let's say, because we do live in a political climate that is probably anathema and hostile to Catholic values and conservative values in general, that let's say, even under the administration that we're currently in, that a group broke away, doesn't matter where, in the South. And they said they were going to break away from the United States and create the true United States, whatever the TTUS, the true United States. And they're going to say, like, we are the true United States, and we're going to return to the United States of the Founding Fathers. But we're also going to incorporate these new things into the TTUS, because we're going to incorporate kind of like some modern sensibilities into it to update it. Now, whether or not that is a noble cause or that's a cause that would be justified, they can say, the TTUS could say that they are the true United States, but historically they would not be, because the true United States, albeit, let's say, the United States out of Washington, D.C., albeit it could be exceedingly corrupt, because I mean every country has corruption. I love it when our leadership's like, we're going to work on corruption in this country. It's like, well, we have corruption too. Every country's got corruption, local level, state level, wherever, county level. But no one can deny historically, and we talked about this with using the example of, let's say, New York, the colony of New York. The colony of New York was established in the 1640s in Manhattan. You know, Peter Minuit bought the island from the Indians, and it was a Dutch colony and eventually an English colony. But we have, through the records, unbroken lineage of who were the governors of the colony of New York. We have this historical record from the 1640s all the way to the 1780s, when, I should say 1776, and then later when the Constitution was adopted. We have who were the governors of the state of New York all the way to today. That's unbroken. So if you have a bunch of people who near Buffalo say, we're the true state of New York, believe us, we're the true one, everyone will be like, no, because we know we have unbroken succession all the way from 1640 with the governor of New York. And it's the same thing with the TTUS, the true United States. You could think that you have noble intentions of breaking away, but you can call yourself the true church and say you're going to the true United States, and you can return to what you perceive to be the way the United States was. But you're not the United States. The United States, again, we have unbroken history from the founding of the Puritans, and later in Jamestown. I should say Jamestown was first. The Puritans, and how we settled the East Coast, and how we broke away from King George III, and then eventually, like I talked about, Declaration of Independence, Constitution, and then westward expansion, all that. That's the true United States. Albeit, you can say the United States is corrupt, but that doesn't take away from the legitimacy and the veracity through history that was the United States. And of course, you know what I'm trying to get to here. So Protestant denominations, They can say, whether it be Calvin or Luther or Anglicanism under Kramer or Knox and Presbyterianism or whatever, fill in the blank, they can say that they are the true church and they're returning the church to the way it was to be, the primitive church. They can say that, but they're not the true church because Presbyterianism didn't exist until John Knox and really Calvin, because Presbyterianism is kind of a knockoff of Calvinism. It's Reformed. Or you could say that about the Church of England or the Lutherans or the Methodists of Wellesley and all these things. You can't say you're the true church when your progenitor, lots of times your church is named after him, didn't exist, nor did that ideology or theology exist, like sola scriptura or sola fide or sola gratia. All these things didn't exist prior to your progenitor. So in the 12th century, 10th century, none of these exist. So how could you say you're the true church? And you might feel you're the true church and you want to bring back the true church to the way it should be. And of course, this is all revisionist spin because you're trying to justify and legitimize, in the case of the true United States, the TTUS, your rebellion. Now, whether or not the rebellion was justified doesn't matter. You're trying to justify your rebellion by claiming that you are the true United States, but you're not the true United States. Everybody can see you're not the true United States because the true United States, albeit has problems, can actually trace historically all the way back to the Founding Fathers and even before that with English colonialism. So you can't claim that as any of these Protestant churches. You can't claim that. And then when you say like, oh, we're going to go back to the primitive church, well, by all means read the church fathers, because the church fathers will tell you that the early church was exceedingly Catholic in its theology. There's no question on that. But of course, they're going to spin things. They'll say like St. Augustine was a proto-Protestant. It's nonsense like this. It's just like, what? So even though the analogy is not perfect, understand that there are parallels to it. Only one church can trace its lineage back to Jesus Christ on the keys of Peter. One, the Catholic Church, the universal church. Only one. So there are going to be elements of truth in the breakaways, just like in the true United States example or the example of New York. But the true authentic one lies with the Catholic Church. And yes, there's corruption in the Catholic Church, no doubt. I mean, we have bad bishops. We've had bad bishops before. We've had bad bishops going back to Judas. Doesn't take away from the authenticity and trueness of the faith. We're always going to have the wheats with the weeds. Always. Saints with sinners. Always. And naming a human institution that doesn't have some sort of element of corruption and people in it that are attached to the 7 deadly sins or concupiscence or whatnot, you're not going to find that. So yes, you're going to hear people, oh, the Catholic Church is sex abuse scandal, the Catholic Church hides the sex predators, priests, and all that is egregious. No Catholic's going to support that. Of course it's egregious. But it doesn't take away from the fact that the Catholic Church is the true church founded by Jesus Christ, because no other church historically can say that. And so if you're ever talking to Protestants about this, who say they're true church, I mean, again, we have a very early episode, I think it was one of the first 10 I ever did back in September of 2021. History vindicates the Catholic Church. And just push the history, use these examples if you like, whatever works for you. Guys, post in the comments. I'd like to hear from you. Hit the notification, subscribe, and share button, share with others. Until next time, take care, God bless, and pray.